The Singing Girl, Chapter 2. In The Singing Girl, Chapter 2, Minh Khoi is trapped in a loveless marriage with the cruel Thien Kim, but his heart is still haunted by the memory of his lost love, Dalan, a beautiful opera singer who met a tragic fate. As the story unfolds, the past and the present collide, bringing back ghosts, both literal and figurative, to torment him. Strange voices echo in the night, and strange ghosts begin to appear, reminding Minh Khoi of broken promises and unfulfilled love. Thien Kim, intent on punishing him for his lingering feelings, sets in motion a dark plan. What dark secrets does the past hold? And how far will Thien Kim go to control her husband's heart? Please continue listening to Chapter 2 of the story, The Singing Girl. Hearing the piercing scream from behind the house, the servants exchanged worried glances. Mr. Counselor Thien, sipping tea in the upper hall, suddenly bellowed, startling everyone. "Hey, what's going on out there? Why are you just standing there? Someone go and see what happened." "Yes, yes." The servants responded frantically before rushing down to the back canal. It was a wide fish pond, densely covered with pink and purple water lilies in full bloom this season. A slender coconut bridge stretched over the canal, used for washing clothes and dishes. As Mr. Thien lifted his tea for a sip, B2 hurriedly ran up from below, face drenched with sweat. "Sir, Miss Ba fell into the canal." Mr. Thien's face darkened with anger. He grabbed a cane, ready to strike. "Heaven's sake, you fool! Why aren't you pulling her out? What are you running here to tell me for?" "Yes, yes. It's not deep, sir," B2 stammered. Mr. Thien slammed his teacup down on the table, startling everyone around. "Raising a bunch of useless fools. Go on, go." "Yes, sir." B2 quickly ran to the back of the house. He arrived to see Thien Kim struggling in the canal, angrily shouting for help. The servants gathered around, their faces pale and fearful. Raised with extreme indulgence, Thien Kim had learned nothing but arrogance and a tendency to bully those below her. No one in the house liked her, though everyone sighed in relief each time she left for the city. When she had arrived from her car just moments ago, instead of going inside, she headed to the back to freshen up. Noticing the cool canal water, she told Bisao to scoop some up for her to wash her feet. Nervously, Bisao scooped the water, but cautiously, not wanting to splash her mistress. Annoyed by Bisao's slow pace, Thien Kim slapped her several times and sent her away, before going to the bridge to get the water herself. Unlucky as she was, she slipped and fell into the canal. Horrified, Bisao tried to pull her up but was immediately scolded. "You useless thing, get away. Get someone else to pull me up." The water only reached Thien Kim's chest, but the servants' faces turned white with fear. Surely someone would be punished soon. B2 shook his head, jumped into the water to help, and shouted, "Hey, someone help me," calling for Bihai to join him. After much fuss, they managed to pull Thien Kim up. Her expensive clothes were drenched, and her feet covered in mud. Bisao stood in a corner, trembling with fear. She knew that even though she hadn't caused Thien Kim to fall, her mistress would never let anyone wrong her without consequence. Surely trouble awaited her soon. Once out of the water, Thien Kim looked around and saw Bisao standing behind a few others. She motioned for her. "Bisao, come here." Trembling, Bisao approached, hands clasped in front of her chest. She barely knelt before receiving a fierce slap that knocked her back. Teeth clenched to hold back her cries, tears silently streamed down her cheeks. "Still have the nerve to talk back? Huh? Did you trip me? Go on, answer me." No, Miss Ba, I wouldn't dare." Before she could finish, another slap struck her, drawing blood at the corner of her mouth. Thien Kim raised her hand for another slap, but someone suddenly stopped her. She turned and saw that Tan Trung had somehow appeared behind her, gripping her wrist tightly, making her wince in pain. "Brother, let go of me. I'm going to teach this insolent girl a lesson." Tan Trung replied coldly, "You fell on your own. I saw it all." Thien Kim clenched her teeth, still seething. He released her, his gaze stern. "You're a woman. You'll have children one day. Think of your future. Stop creating bad karma and accumulate some virtue for your children. Outraged, Thien Kim glared at him. You're cursing me? Enough! Mr. Kien's voice thundered from behind. He hobbled forward, his face twisted in anger. You're here for your grandmother's anniversary, not to bicker and cause trouble. If you want to fight, go somewhere else. This house still has a master, and I'm right here. Thien Kim lowered her head in silence. Her mother, Mrs. Xian, hurried over, placing her hand on Mr. Kien's chest, attempting to soothe him. Calm down, please. She's still young, don't be too harsh. Mr. Kien brushed her hand away, shouting, And you, standing there doing nothing to stop this chaos? Do you want this household torn apart? Mrs. Xian could only stay silent, holding Mr. Kien's arm while glancing at Thien Kim, who sat on the ground. Hey, you lot! Help Miss Bar up. No sooner had he spoken than a hand reached down, taking Thien Kim's arm. Are you all right? It was Minh Khoi, Thien Kim's husband. He had been watching everything, observing his wife's tyrannical behavior but not wanting to intervene. In this household, outside of the estate matters, Minh Khoi had little voice, and he preferred to avoid conflicts to maintain his position. Thien Kim shrugged off his hand, raising her voice. Do I look all right? Minh Khoi remained silent and helped her up. She shot him a warning look. You better watch out. Then turned to Tan Trung. You too, brother. Tan Trung said nothing and refused to meet her gaze, which only made Thien Kim stomp her foot in frustration. Mr. Kien shook his head, gesturing to everyone. This morning, Tan Trung's engagement fell apart, and now Thien Kim's stirring up trouble too. It seems my children won't let me have a peaceful day. I must have sown bad karma in my past life to end up like this. He sighed deeply, then said, Go wash up and come eat. Servants, get the table ready. Yes, sir. The servants replied, bustling off. Bisao bowed her head, walking quietly, but Tan Trung called after her. Hey, Bisao, are you all right? Without looking up, she shook her head. I'm fine, sir. Tan Trung took out some coins, pressing them into her hand. Here, take this and get some medicine for your face, and stay away from Miss Ba from now on. Her hands trembled as she reluctantly took the money. Thank you, sir. As Bisao left, Tan Trung looked over toward Thien Kim's room, thinking, I need to leave this family soon. Seeing her daughter losing her temper, Mrs. Xian gently patted Thien Kim on the shoulder and advised, Let's save this for when we're back in Saigon. Here we're at your father's family home, and tomorrow's the memorial. Keep quiet or else, if your father hears, you'll both get a scolding. Thien Kim glanced at Minh Khoi, lowering her voice but unable to hide her annoyance. Fine, I'll let you off this time just because of mother. But remember, if I ever catch you looking at her photo again, you'll pay. Minh Khoi sat there, swallowing his frustration. The words he wanted to say were buried inside him, yet resentment and weariness weighed heavily in his heart. He truly felt exhausted by this marriage, and if it weren't for his parents, he would have left long ago. Mrs. Xian looked over at Minh Khoi, giving a slight shake of her head, signaling him to stay calm. Though she knew her son-in-law was talented and had contributed much to the family, she also understood Thien Kim's fiery temperament, and if the couple continued like this, the family would never be at peace. After a moment of silence, Mrs. Xian sighed, then turned and left the room. Before closing the door, she gently reminded, Try to tolerate each other a little, you two. Tomorrow is your grandmother's memorial. Let's not have any incidents. As the door shut, it left Minh Khoi and Thien Kim in a heavy silence. Thien Kim lay down, turning her back to him, while Minh Khoi sat quietly on the chair, staring blankly out the window. The faint moonlight cast a somber glow on his tired face. In his heart, he had only one desire, to escape this oppressive marriage and regain some freedom. But when he considered his obligations to his family, his duty to his parents, and his own honor, he felt trapped by a web that he couldn't easily break free from. The manager held a photograph in his hand, examining the face of the woman captured within. a mixture of intrigue and mystery on his face. In the photo, the opera singer posed in traditional attire, her face heavily made up, yet her eyes conveyed a gentle sadness, as if harboring unspoken sorrows. Murmuring to himself, a faint, eerie glint appeared in his gaze. "It's been a long time since I've seen her." B2, who had been standing nearby, noticed the manager staring intently at the photo and, curious, asked, "What's so interesting in that picture, manager?" The manager snapped out of his reverie, quickly putting the photo back into his pocket and giving a sly smile. "Oh, it's nothing. Just an old roll. I want to remind Miss Mai Chow to give her best performance tomorrow." B2 didn't understand but didn't question him further, shaking his head as he turned to leave. After giving her instructions, Thien Kim returned to her room, feeling immensely pleased. She had poured all her hopes into tomorrow night's performance, an event designed not just to entertain the family, but to carry deeper meaning. She wanted to stir up Minh Khoi's past with his lost love, to punish him for keeping a photo of Dalan, the opera singer. In his dimly lit room, Minh Khoi lay tossing and turning, thinking of Thien Kim's bitter words and his mother-in-law's disapproving gaze. Memories of Dalan lingered as he remembered their first encounter, a gentle, pure girl who quietly supported him through his struggles. His life might have been so different if he hadn't been drawn into the whirlpool of ambition and status. In the adjacent room, Tan Trung was also sleepless. In his heart, the image of Dahung remained vivid, the girl he had met only briefly yet who had deeply touched his soul. If they met again, he was certain he wouldn't let her slip away. Outside the house, the night grew colder. The wind rustled through the bamboo trees, creating eerie, whispering sounds like distant cries. In the dark, the boat rocked gently on the water, a quiet, mysterious shadow. That night, Mr. Counselor's house lay in eerie silence, but somewhere in the distance, strange whispers and sounds floated over from the riverbank. "Oh, Dalan, your death was so unjust." After leaving the guest quarters, Thien Kim turned down a shadowed corridor toward her room. The hallway was empty, blanketed in darkness. As she walked, she muttered to herself, "Let's see how he reacts tomorrow." Miss Ba. Suddenly, in the dark, she heard a young girl's voice calling her. The voice was strange, cold, and unlike any she had heard before. She turned her head, but down the corridor, aside from a few potted plants swaying in the breeze, there was no one. "Who's there?" she called out, but received no answer. Was she hearing things? Shaking her head, she mumbled to herself and turned back to continue walking. "Miss Ba." This time the voice was clearer. Thien Kim spun around instantly. Still, only the silent, empty darkness stretched down the hall. In the yard, old trees swayed, casting eerie shadows that danced across the ground in the dim light. "Whoever's playing tricks on me, come out now. If I catch you, don't blame me." Thien Kim moved toward a willow tree nearby, noticing a small, delicate heel sticking out from behind it. She smiled slyly. "Got you." She lunged forward, but then let out a blood-curdling scream that pierced the night. Meanwhile, Minh Khoi had fallen asleep and was dreaming. He found himself walking along a deserted path, the place where he and Dalan had once met. But Dalan was gone. Why was he back here? Minh Khoi slowly walked down the familiar road. Through the mist, he saw himself and Dalan sitting on a stone bench, looking out over the swiftly flowing river below. Dalan wore a soft pink dress, her hair braided in two delicate plaits resting on her chest. A faint bruise marked her face, as if someone had struck her. He remembered the incident. A wealthy landowner had tried to flirt with her at the theater, and when she refused, he had hit her. Each day after that, Dalan would wear thick makeup to hide the mark while she performed. "On Khoi, I just received my pay for this month. Here, take it to help your parents," Dalan said, pressing a small bag of money into his hand. He vividly remembered how cold those silver coins had felt against his fingers. Minh Khoi gently touched the bruise on her cheek, his heart aching. "You work so hard every month. Why don't you save some to buy yourself something nice?" Dalan smiled, leaning into his hand. We're young, so we can manage without. But your parents are getting old. Didn't you say they lost all their crops last season and are short on rice? Yes. But you worked so hard for this money. Take it, don't worry about me. I'm already like a daughter-in-law in your family, so there's no need to be shy. Minh Khoi smiled, pocketing the money. After a moment, he cleared his throat. Oh, and I'm thinking of taking a dance class next month. Up here, if you don't know how to dance, people laugh at you. Besides, it's a good way to meet the wealthy folks. It could help me find a good job later. So, have you signed up yet? Not yet. The tuition isn't cheap. I asked the instructor, but Delon gave him a warm smile. I'll be performing for the mayor's family in Ba Tri soon. I'll make a bit more money then. Hearing this, Minh Khoi pulled her into an embrace. I love you most in this world. And I love you too. When you're working and making money, you'll take care of me, won't you? With conviction, he raised his hand. Of course. I swear I won't let you suffer. Shoo, I trust you. He leaned in, pressing a tender kiss to her cheek. But as he pulled back, her face twisted. The skin pale and lifeless, lips darkened, and her eyes bulging, red and about to fall out. A foul odor wafted over him, and in shock, he kicked himself backward. You think I'm disgusting now? You used to kiss me. Tell me I was beautiful. Who are you? I'm Delon. You're Delon. As she spoke, Delon crawled from the bench, reaching out a decayed hand, oozing foul-smelling flesh, clutching at his ankle. Khoi, I died a terrible death. Why didn't you save me? Go away, go! Minh Khoi screamed, sitting bolt upright in bed. He looked down at his ankle, but there was nothing there. He was back in his room, drenched in sweat, his hair disheveled and mind spinning. Looking beside him, he realized Thien Kim hadn't returned. It was nearly midnight, and he had been asleep for 3 hours. She must have gone to sleep in another room, as she did in Saigon whenever they argued. Pouring himself a cup of tea, he took a sip before lying back down, pulling the blanket up to his neck. But in the silence of the night, he heard someone singing. Eyes wide, he jolted upright. The clock struck midnight, 12 chimes echoing through the room. Outside the window, a dark figure appeared without warning.